The storm hit Jiho's farm just after sunset. Rain hammered against the old farmhouse windows, and thunder shook the wooden beams. Jiho sat at his kitchen table, eating a simple dinner of rice and kimchi. He was used to eating alone. It had been 5 years since his wife Hana died, and the silence had become normal. Lightning flashed across the sky, so bright it lit up the whole kitchen. In that moment, Jiho saw something strange in his rice field. A blue light, different from the lightning. He stood up and walked to the window, pressing his face against the glass. Another lightning flash revealed something that shouldn't be there. Something large and metallic, half buried in the mud. Jiho grabbed his raincoat and boots. Any sensible person would have stayed inside during a storm like this. But Jiho had spent his whole life on this farm. He knew every inch of his land. Whatever was out there didn't belong. The rain soaked through his coat within seconds. The wind tried to push him back toward the house, but Jiho leaned forward and kept walking. His boots sank deep into the wet soil. As he got closer, he could see it clearly now. Some kind of pod or small craft, smoking and sparking. Part of it was crushed, and there was a large crack along one side. Jiho approached carefully. Through the crack, he could see movement. Someone was inside. He pulled at the metal with his hands, but it wouldn't budge. Running back to his barn, he grabbed a crowbar and returned. It took all his strength, but finally, the metal panel bent enough to create an opening. What he saw inside made him step back in shock that the creature wasn't human. Her skin glowed faintly with a blue-green light. She had 4 arms instead of 2, and her eyes were huge and completely black. But despite her alien appearance, Jiho could see the pain on her face. She was breathing hard, clutching her swollen belly. She was pregnant. And from the looks of it, the baby was coming now. The alien woman looked at him with those huge eyes. She said something in a language he couldn't understand. Her voice was musical, but desperate. One of her hands reached out toward him. Jiho had delivered calves before. He had helped birth lambs and even a foal once. This was different. The pain was pain. Fear was fear. And this creature needed help. He held out his hand. "It's okay," he said softly, even though she couldn't understand his words. "I'll help you." Getting her out of the pod was difficult. She was taller than him and clearly in terrible pain. Jiho half carried, half dragged her through the rain toward his house. She leaned heavily on him, making sounds that were clearly cries of pain. Inside, he cleared off his kitchen table and helped her lie down. Her glowing skin left faint blue marks on his hands. She was shaking, her breathing coming in short gasps. Jiho had no idea what he was doing, but he remembered helping animals give birth. "Stay calm. Keep breathing. Be there." He boiled water and grabbed clean towels. The alien woman gripped his hand with surprising strength. Her eyes met his, and even though they looked so different, he could see the same fear he had seen in his wife's eyes years ago, when they learned they could never have children. Hours passed. The storm outside raged on, but inside the farmhouse, Jiho focused entirely on helping this stranger. She squeezed his hand so hard, he thought his bones might break. Her body glowed brighter with each contraction, filling the room with blue-green light. Then, finally, with a sound that was half cry and half song, the baby came. But something was wrong. The infant wasn't moving. It wasn't breathing. The mother's eyes went wide with terror, and she tried to sit up, but she was too weak. Jiho's hands moved before his mind could think. He had seen farmers do this with stillborn calves. He picked up the tiny alien baby, cleared its mouth and nose, and pressed gently on its chest. Once, twice, 3 times. Nothing. He breathed into the baby's mouth and pressed again. The mother was making a high-pitched sound that needed no translation. It was the sound of a mother watching her child die. Jiho pressed harder. "Come on," he whispered. Come on, little one. The baby jerked. Then it coughed. Then it started crying, a sound like tiny bells ringing. The mother let out a sob of relief and reached for her child with all four arms. Jiho placed the baby on her chest carefully. The infant's skin glowed just like its mother's, pulsing with soft blue light. The mother wrapped her arms around her baby and looked at Jiho with tears streaming down her face. She said something in her language over and over while crying. Jiho didn't need a translation. He understood. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. He covered them both with blankets and made sure they were comfortable. The mother's eyes slowly closed, exhausted beyond words. The baby nursed and fell asleep against her chest. Their glowing skin dimmed to a soft pulse, like a slow heartbeat made of light. Jiho sat down in his chair next to the table. His hands were shaking now that the crisis was over. He looked at this alien mother and child sleeping in his kitchen, and he felt something he hadn't felt in 5 years. Purpose. He thought about Hana. They had tried so hard to have a child. They had saved every bit of money for treatments that never worked. They had cried together so many times. And then she was gone, and he was alone. Now, in the strangest way possible, he had helped bring life into the world. The storm was starting to fade outside. Jiho could see the first hints of dawn through the window. He knew his life had just changed in ways he couldn't begin to understand. There would be questions. There would be people coming. There would be problems he couldn't imagine. But right now, in this moment, none of that mattered. He had seen someone in need, and he had helped. That was all. That was everything. Jiho stood and walked to the window. The rain had stopped. His rice field was a mess, with the crashed pods still smoking in the distance. He sighed. There would be a lot to explain. Behind him, the baby made a soft sound. Jiho turned and saw the mother had opened her eyes. She was looking at him with an expression that transcended species. Gratitude. Trust. Hope. Jiho nodded at her and smiled. She smiled back, or at least it looked like a smile. Outside, the sun started to rise. It was going to be a very interesting day. What Jiho didn't know was that in orbit above Earth, sensors had finally located the missing pod. What he didn't know was that a fleet of ships was already entering the solar system. What he didn't know was that the woman sleeping at his kitchen table was royalty, and her baby was heir to an empire that spanned 100 worlds. All Jiho knew was that he had helped someone in need. And for now, that was enough. He made himself a cup of tea and sat down to wait for whatever came next. Jiho woke up in his chair. For a moment, he thought last night had been a dream. Then he heard the soft musical breathing from his kitchen table and knew it was real. The alien mother and her baby were still sleeping, their skin glowing gently in the morning light. He stood up, his back aching from sleeping in the chair. He needed coffee. He needed to think. He needed to figure out what to do next. Then he heard it. A deep rumbling sound that made the window shake. It grew louder and louder until it felt like the whole house was vibrating. Jiho ran to the window and looked up. His mouth fell open. The sky was full of ships. Dozens of them. Massive vessels that made passenger planes look like toys. They were descending slowly, surrounding his farm from every direction. Their hulls were dark metal that seemed to absorb the sunlight. Strange symbols glowed along their sides. "Oh no," Jiho whispered. "What have I gotten into?" Before he could move, he heard helicopters. Korean military helicopters were coming from the east, moving fast. They circled around the alien ships like angry wasps around elephants. The alien ships ignored them completely. Jiho heard vehicles racing up his dirt road. Army trucks. Police cars. All their sirens were screaming. Within minutes, his quiet farm was surrounded by Korean soldiers. They set up barriers and pointed their weapons at the alien ships. One of the massive alien vessels landed in his rice field, crushing what was left of his crop. A door opened in its side, and soldiers poured out. But these weren't human soldiers. They were tall, glowing creatures like the woman in his kitchen. They wore armor that shimmered with energy, and they carried weapons that hummed with power. A Korean military officer ran up to Jiho's door and pounded on it. "Open up. This is Colonel Woojin. You need to evacuate immediately." Jiho opened the door. "I can't leave," he said. "There's someone inside who needs help." Colonel Woojin pushed past him, followed by several soldiers. They stopped dead when they saw the alien woman and her baby sleeping on the kitchen table. "Sweet mercy," Woojin breathed. "It's true. There really is an alien here." The alien woman opened her eyes. She saw the soldiers and immediately tried to sit up, wrapping all four arms protectively around her baby. She looked terrified. Wait, Jiho said, stepping between them. "Don't scare her. She's hurt. The baby just born last night." "Sir, you need to step aside," Woojin said. "This is a matter of national security." But before anyone could move, the door exploded inward. Not violently, but like it had been gently pushed aside by an invisible hand. An alien soldier stood in the doorway, 7 feet tall and covered in armor that crackled with blue energy. Behind him came another, then another dot, and then came someone different. An older alien male, his skin darker and crossed with scars. He wore a uniform covered in symbols and medals. His presence filled the room with authority. The other aliens immediately stepped aside for him. He looked directly at the woman on the table. His huge black eyes went wide. He dropped to one knee and said something in their musical language. All the other alien soldiers did the same. The woman responded weakly. She gestured toward Jiho and said something that sounded important. The alien commander stood and looked at Jiho. He touched the device on his collar, and when he spoke, his words came out in Korean. His voice was deep and serious. "I am Admiral Kale of the Velani Empire. You have in your home Crown Princess Lyra and her infant child, heir to the imperial throne. Where is your leader? I must speak with whoever is in charge." Everyone in the room looked at Jiho. He blinked in confusion. I'm just a farmer," Jiho said. "I don't know anything about princesses or empires. She crashed in my field last night. She needed help having her baby. That's all I know." Admiral Kale stared at him for a long moment. Then he spoke rapidly to the other aliens. Several of them moved to the table, carrying medical equipment that looked nothing like human tools. They began scanning the mother and baby with devices that projected soft lights. "The princess is injured but stable," one of them reported. "The infant is healthy but was oxygen deprived at birth." Someone performed primitive but effective resuscitation. Admiral Kale looked at Jiho again. "You delivered the heir? You saved the child's life?" "The baby wasn't breathing," Jiho said simply. "I did what I could. I've helped birth calves before. I couldn't let the baby die." A strange silence filled the room. The alien soldiers all stared at Jiho. Even Colonel Woojin and his men looked shocked. "Princess Lyra," said something weakly from the table. Admiral Kale listened, then nodded. He turned back to Jiho and did something that seemed to surprise his own soldiers. He bowed deeply. "The princess says you saved her life and the life of her child. You asked for nothing. You expected nothing. You simply helped because she needed help." "Yes," Jiho said, confused. "What else would I do?" Admiral Kale straightened up. "You don't understand, human. The princess was fleeing assassins from a rival faction. Her ship was sabotaged. She was dying. If not for you, the imperial bloodline would have ended here. You have done what an entire fleet could not. You have saved the future of our empire. More vehicles were arriving outside. Jiho heard shouting in Korean. Someone important was coming. A woman in an expensive suit pushed her way through the soldiers. She looked at the aliens, then at Jiho, then back at the aliens. "I am Minji, diplomatic envoy from the Korean government," she said quickly. "We need to establish protocols immediately. This is first contact with an alien civilization, and we must—" "This is not first contact," Admiral Kale interrupted. "The Villani Empire has been aware of Earth for some time. We were waiting for your species to develop further before making contact. However, current circumstances have forced acceleration of our timeline." Minji's professional mask slipped for just a moment. "You've been watching us?" "Yes, and today, one of your people has done something extraordinary." Admiral Kale gestured to Jiho. "This farmer has saved the life of our crown princes and the imperial heir. According to our oldest laws, a life debt is owed. A debt that must be honored." Jiho held up his hands. "Wait, I don't want anything. I was just helping someone who needed it." This statement caused another strange silence. The aliens looked at each other. Several of them made sounds that might have been surprise or confusion. "You want nothing?" Admiral Kale asked slowly. "No reward? No payment? No political advantage?" "I just want to go back to farming," Jiho said honestly. "This is all too much for me." Princess Lyra said something from the table. She was crying again, but these seemed like different tears. She reached out toward Jiho with one hand. Admiral Kale translated. "The princess says you are the kindest soul she has ever met. She says her child lives because of your compassion. She says the galaxy needs to know about you." "The galaxy can know about someone else," Jiho said, feeling overwhelmed. "I'm nobody special." "That," Admiral Kale said quietly, "is what makes you special." Outside, more ships were landing. The sky was filling with vessels from both Earth and the stars. News helicopters circled overhead. Jiho could hear reporters shouting questions. His quiet farm had become the center of everything. He looked at Princess Lyra and her baby. The infant was sleeping peacefully now, glowing softly. The mother was watching him with those huge eyes, full of gratitude and something else. Hope maybe. Or trust. Jiho sighed. His simple life was over. He knew that now. But he had saved a life. 2 lives. And somehow, that made all of this worth it. "All right," he said quietly. "What happens now?" Admiral Kale looked at him with what might have been respect. "Now, Farmer Jiho, the universe changes because of what you did." 3 days had passed since the fleet arrived. Jiho's farm looked nothing like it used to. Alien soldiers patrolled everywhere. Korean military had set up camps all around his property. News reporters lined the roads, held back by barriers. The whole world was watching his little farm. Jiho sat on his porch, drinking tea. He felt like a prisoner in his own home. Every time he tried to work in his fields, soldiers followed him. Every time he went to his barn, someone asked him questions. He missed his quiet life. Admiral Kale approached the porch. The tall alien had been polite but firm about security. "Farmer Jiho, the princess, has requested to speak with you. She is strong enough now." Jiho nodded and followed him inside. They had converted his living room into a medical area. Princess Lyra sat on cushions, her baby sleeping in her arms. She looked much better. Her skin glowed brighter, and she was sitting up straight. When she saw Jiho, she smiled. She touched her translator device. "Jiho," she said in Korean, though her pronunciation was strange. "Please sit with me." Jiho sat down on his old chair. It felt weird seeing an alien princess in his living room. She looked at him with those huge dark eyes, and he saw warmth in them. "I need to thank you properly," she said. "But first, I need to explain what you have done. Do you understand what it means that I am a crown princess?" Your royalty, Jiho said. Important to your people. I am the heir to an empire of 100 worlds, Lyra said gently. Billions of beings follow the imperial family. My child, she looked down at the sleeping baby, is the next generation. The future of everything we are. She looked back at him. There are others who want that future to be different. They sabotaged my ship while I was traveling. They wanted me and my child to die. They almost succeeded, but you survived, Jiho said. Because of you. Lyra's voice was thick with emotion. You didn't know who I was. You didn't know my child would rule worlds. You just saw someone who needed help, and you gave it. Do you know how rare that is in the galaxy? Jiho felt uncomfortable. I just did what anyone would do. No, Lyra said firmly. Most beings would have asked for payment first. Or they would have contacted authorities to claim a reward. Or they would have used me as a hostage for political gain. You did none of these things. You simply helped because it was right. The door opened and Admiral Kale entered with Minji, the Korean diplomatic envoy. Behind them came more officials, both human and alien. The room suddenly felt very crowded. Minji spoke first. Mr. Jiho, the Korean government wants to thank you for your service. You've helped establish first contact with an advanced civilization. We would like to offer compensation, one of the Korean officials interrupted. A Medal of Honor, a position in the government, financial support. Admiral Kale's translator crackled. The Villani Empire also wishes to honor Farmer Jiho. We are prepared to offer advanced technology, territorial rights to an uninhabited planet, membership in the Imperial Council. Stop, Jiho said quietly. Everyone fell silent. Please, just stop. He stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see his fields trampled and ruined by all the ships and vehicles. His simple life destroyed by all this attention. I don't want money, he said. I don't want medals or positions or planets. I don't want any of it. But we must honor the life debt, Admiral Kale said. Our laws are ancient and sacred. You saved the princes and the heir. We cannot let this go unpaid. Jiho turned around. Then honor it by leaving me alone. Let me go back to farming. That's all I want. The silence that followed was uncomfortable. Lyra looked sad. Minji looked frustrated. The officials looked confused. You don't understand, Lyra said softly. If we don't honor the dead, it brings shame to my family. It brings shame to our entire empire. We must give you something worthy of what you've done. Jiho walked back and knelt down next to Lyra. He looked at the sleeping baby. Can I tell you something about me? Lyra nodded. My wife and I tried for years to have a child, Jiho said. His voice was rough with old pain. We saved all our money for treatments. We visited every doctor. Nothing worked. And then Hannah, my wife, she died in an accident 5 years ago. Since then, I've been alone. I thought I would never experience anything like bringing a child into the world. He looked up at Lyra. Then you crashed in my field, and I helped your baby be born. When that little one wasn't breathing, I felt terror like I've never known. And when she started breathing, when I heard that first cry, I felt joy I thought I'd never feel again. You and your empire don't owe me anything. You gave me something precious just by letting me be part of that moment. Tears ran down Lyra's face. She said something in her own language, too emotional to use the translator. Admiral Kale looked stunned. Even the human officials seemed moved. Minji spoke carefully. Mr. Jiho, I understand your feelings. But you must understand the position this puts everyone in. Your actions have consequences beyond your farm. Earth is now connected to the Villani Empire. We need to manage this relationship carefully. I'm not a diplomat, Jiho said tiredly. I'm a farmer. I shouldn't be in the middle of all this. But you are, Admiral Kale said. Whether you want it or not, you have become important to both our peoples. The story of what you did has already spread across the Empire. Billions know your name. You are a symbol now. A symbol of what? Jiho asked. Of kindness, Lyra said softly. Of compassion without expectation. Of doing right simply because it is right. These are values my people have forgotten. We have become cold in our advancement. We have forgotten what it means to help without asking what we gain. You have reminded us. She stood up carefully, cradling her baby. I will return to my homeworld soon. There are those who tried to kill me, and I must deal with them. But before I go, I want to promise you something. I will not force rewards upon you. I will not make you a symbol against your will. But I will make sure the galaxy knows what you did. And I will make sure that my daughter, she looked down at her baby, knows who saved her life. What is her name? Jiho asked. Lyra smiled. I have been thinking about this. In my language, she's called Velahana. But I would also like to give her an Earth name. Your wife's name, Hana, if you permit it. Jiho felt his throat tighten. He nodded, unable to speak. Then it is done, Lyra said. Velahana Hana, Princess of the Velani Empire. And when she is old enough, I will tell her about the farmer who gave her life twice. Once at her birth, and once by giving her a name filled with love. The officials started talking about diplomatic arrangements and cultural exchanges. But Jiho stopped listening. He was looking at little Hana, sleeping peacefully in her mother's arms. The baby's skin pulsed with soft blue light, like a gentle heartbeat. Later that evening, after the officials left, Jiho sat alone on his porch again. Admiral Kale joined him, sitting carefully on the steps. You are an unusual human, the Admiral said. I'm really not, Jiho replied. That is what makes you unusual, Kale said. In all my years commanding fleets, visiting worlds, meeting countless beings, I have rarely seen someone refuse power so completely. Most beings would have used this situation for personal gain. I just want to plant rice, Jiho said. Is that so strange? Kale was quiet for a moment. Perhaps it shouldn't be, but it is. He stood up. The princess will leave in 2 weeks. Until then, we must protect her. I hope you can tolerate our presence a little longer. I don't have much choice, Jiho said, but he smiled a little. Kale nodded and walked away. Jiho looked up at the sky. Somewhere up there were 100 worlds he would never see. Billions of beings he would never meet. And somehow, he had touched all their lives by simply doing what felt right. He wondered what Hana would think of all this. His Hana, his wife. He hoped she would be proud. The stars were coming out now. Jiho realized some of those lights might not be stars anymore. They might be ships. They might be worlds where people were talking about him. The thought was overwhelming. But tomorrow, he would wake up and try to fix his rice field. That, at least, was something he could understand. 2 weeks had passed since Princess Lyra crashed on his farm. Jiho was slowly getting used to having alien guards watching his every move. One guard in particular had become something like a friend. His name was Tarn, a young Velani soldier who was curious about everything Earth. Why do you put the rice plants in water? Tarn asked, following Jiho through what was left of his fields. Rice grows better in flooded fields, Jiho explained, scooping mud with his hands. The water keeps weeds down and helps the roots grow strong. Tarn knelt down and tried to copy Jiho's movements. His forehands made him clumsy at first, but he learned quickly. This is harder than fighting battles, he said. Jiho laughed. Different kind of battle. You're fighting the earth, the weather, the seasons. But if you're patient and work hard, the earth gives back. They worked together for an hour. Other alien guards watched with interest. Some of the Korean soldiers stationed nearby came over to watch too. It was strange, but Jiho found himself enjoying teaching. He missed having someone to talk to while working. Princess Lyra visited his farm every day now. She was fully healed and spent most of her time with baby Hana. The little alien princess was growing fast. Already she could hold her head up and her eyes tracked movement. Lyra brought her to see Jiho that afternoon. "She knows you," Lyra said, smiling. "Watch." When Hana saw Jiho, she made happy gurgling sounds and reached toward him with her tiny 4 arms. Jiho felt his heart melt. He had delivered this child. He had breathed life into her lungs. Seeing her healthy and happy made everything worth it. "She's beautiful," Jiho said. "She is alive because of you," Lyra replied. "I leave for my homeworld in 3 days. There are political matters I must address. Those who tried to kill me must be dealt with. Will you be safe?" Jiho asked. "Admiral Kale believes so. With Hana alive and well, I have the support of the Imperial Council. The conspirators have lost." She paused. "But I wanted to spend time here before I leave. This place has become special to me. Your world is beautiful, Jiho. Simpler than ours, but there is peace here." They sat on his porch together, watching the sun start to set. Hana fell asleep in her mother's arms, glowing softly. It was a peaceful moment, and Jiho let himself relax. That was when the attack came. It happened fast. One of the Korean soldiers at the perimeter suddenly turned and fired his weapon at the alien guards. But it wasn't a bullet. It was an energy beam, like the weapons the Villani used. The guard was hit and fell. More soldiers revealed themselves. They had been hiding among the humans and aliens for days, waiting. Their bodies started to shift and change. They were shapeshifters, aliens disguised as humans and Villani. There were at least 6 of them. Admiral Kale's voice boomed across the farm. "Assassins! Protect the princess!" Jiho didn't think. He grabbed Lyra's arm. "Inside, now!" They ran for the house. Energy beams cut through the air around them. One hit the porch, exploding wood into splinters. Lyra clutched Hana tightly, using her body to shield her baby. They made it inside, and Jiho slammed the door. "The back room," he said. "It has no windows." "Go!" Lyra hesitated. "What about you?" "I'll be fine." "Protect your daughter." Lyra ran to the back of the house. Jiho looked around frantically. He wasn't a soldier. He didn't have weapons. But this was his farm. He knew every inch of it. The door exploded inward. 2 assassins in shifting, unstable forms pushed through. Their faces kept changing, trying to find stable shapes. One spoke in a voice like grinding metal. "Where's the princess? Give her to us and we'll let you live." "She's not here," Jiho lied. "We can smell her," the assassin said. "And the child. You can't protect them, human." They moved toward the back of the house. Jiho did the only thing he could think of. He grabbed a heavy chair and swung it at the closest assassin. It connected with the creature's head. The assassin stumbled, surprised that a mere human would attack. "Run!" Jiho shouted toward the back room. He heard Lyra break through the back window. Good. She was escaping. Now he just needed to give her time. The assassins were angry now. One of them backhanded Jiho, sending him flying across the room. He hit the wall hard, pain exploding through his body. Through blurry vision, he saw them heading for the broken window. Outside, he heard fighting. Admiral Kale and his soldiers were engaging the other assassins. Energy weapons lit up the twilight. But these 2 were getting away, chasing Lyra. Jiho forced himself to stand. Every part of him hurt, but he couldn't stop. Not now. He stumbled outside through the front door and ran toward his barn. He had an idea. Probably a stupid idea, but it was all he had. He could see Lyra running across his field, carrying Hannah. The two assassins were closing in. In seconds, they would catch her. Jiho reached his barn and grabbed the container of fuel he used for his equipment. He also grabbed matches and an armful of dry straw. His hands were shaking, but his mind was clear. "Hey!" he shouted at the assassins. "Over here, you bastards!" One of them turned. It saw Jiho and changed direction, moving toward him with frightening speed. Perfect. Jiho ran into his barn, spreading the straw as he went. He could hear the assassin behind him. "Stupid human," it hissed. "You just trapped yourself." Jiho reached the back of the barn where his tractor was parked. He poured the fuel over the straw, making a trail. The assassin was almost on him now, its form shifting into something with claws and teeth. Jiho lit a match and dropped it on the fuel. The barn exploded into flame. The assassin screamed as fire caught its unstable form. Shapeshifters apparently didn't like fire. The creature tried to change shape to escape, but the flames moved faster. Jiho dove behind the tractor, using it as a shield. The fire spread through the barn faster than he expected. Smoke filled the air. He could barely breathe. This might have been a very stupid idea after all, but then he heard Admiral Kale's voice. "Get him out!" Hands grabbed Jiho and pulled him from the burning barn. He coughed and gasped, his eyes streaming with tears from the smoke. The entire barn was ablaze now. The assassin inside was silent. "You set your own barn on fire?" Kale asked, sounding somewhere between impressed and horrified. "Had to stop them," Jiho coughed. "Where's Lyra?" "The princess is safe. My soldiers have her. The other assassins have been eliminated." Kale looked at the burning barn. "You are either very brave or very foolish, farmer." "Maybe both," Jiho said. Tarn ran up, looking worried. "Jiho, are you hurt?" "I'll be fine," Jiho said, though his ribs hurt badly and his head was pounding. They brought him to where Lyra was waiting, surrounded by guards. When she saw him, she pushed through them and ran to him. She said something rapid in her language, then switched to Korean. "You could have died. You should have run. You needed time to escape," Jiho said simply. "That's all that mattered." Lyra looked at him with tears in her huge eyes. She carefully shifted Hana to two arms and embraced Jiho with her other two. "You saved us again," she whispered. "You keep saving us." The Korean military arrived in force, along with more Vellani soldiers. The farm was chaos again. Fire crews were putting out the barn fire. Medical teams were checking everyone for injuries. The assassins' bodies were being examined. A Vellani medic insisted on checking. Jiho. She said he had bruised ribs and a concussion, but would heal. They gave him something that eased the pain immediately. Alien medicine was impressive. Admiral Kale approached as the medic finished. The shapeshifters were from the same faction that sabotaged the princess's ship. This was their final attempt. They failed. "The conspiracy is over." "Good," Jiho said tiredly. "You fought them with fire and farm equipment," Kale said. "You had no weapons, no armor, no training. Yet you stopped them long enough for us to arrive." "How?" "This is my farm," Jiho said. "I know every part of it. I knew the barn would burn fast. I knew the fuel would spread. I just used what I had." Kale shook his head slowly. "In all my years as a warrior, I have fought many battles. I have seen trained soldiers freeze in combat. I have seen commanders make terrible mistakes under pressure. But you, a farmer with no combat experience, you thought clearly and acted decisively. You humans are surprising." "I was terrified the whole time," Jiho admitted. "That is what courage is," Kale said. "Acting despite fear." Later that night, after things had calmed down, Jiho sat on his porch again. His barn was gone, burned to nothing. His fields were ruined. His house was damaged. His quiet life was definitely over, but Lyra and Hannah were alive. That had to count for something. Tarn brought him tea and sat beside him. "You're a strange human, Jiho," the young alien said. "So everyone keeps telling me," Jiho replied. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars come out. Tomorrow would bring more questions, more attention, more complications. But tonight, Jiho allowed himself to rest. He had protected what mattered. Sometimes that was enough. 6 months had passed since the assassination attempt. Jiho's farm looked different now, but not in the way he had feared. The Korean government had paid to rebuild his barn, bigger and better than before. His fields were replanted and growing strong. The military was gone. The news reporters had finally left, but some things had stayed. Tarn and his mate Nabi, a gentle female Velani, lived in the small house built near Jiho's farm. They were learning agriculture, studying earth farming methods. Every morning, Tarn would knock on Jiho's door, and they would work the fields together. "The rice is growing well," Tarn said, examining the bright green stalks. "Your teaching is working." "You're a good student," Jiho said. "Better than you think." Nabi walked over carrying a basket of vegetables from their garden. "Jiho, I picked these for dinner. Will you eat with us tonight?" Jiho smiled. "I'd be happy to." It was strange having neighbors again after 5 years alone. But it was good strange. The young couple reminded him that life moved forward, even when you thought it had stopped. Today was special, though. Princess Lyra was returning to Earth for a visit. It would be her first time back since she left to reclaim her throne and deal with the conspirators. Messages had arrived from space the night before. The fleet would arrive this afternoon. Jiho had mixed feelings. He missed Lyra and little Hannah. In the months after they left, he realized how much their presence had meant to him. But their return also meant attention again. Cameras, officials, crowds, all the things he didn't like. Minji arrived first in a government car. She had become the main contact between Earth and the Velani Empire. She dressed less formally now and actually smiled when she saw Jiho. "Ready for the big day?" she asked. "As ready as I'll ever be," Jiho said. The princess insisted on a small ceremony. No big crowds. Just you, some officials, and her people. She said you'd prefer it that way. "She knows me well," Jiho admitted. By noon, the ships arrived. Smaller than before, but still impressive. One large vessel landed in Jiho's field, in the same spot where Lyra's pod had crashed 6 months ago. The door opened and guards emerged first. Then Admiral Kale walked out, his armor shining in the sunlight. And then came Lyra. She looked different. More regal somehow. She wore robes that shimmered with silver threads. Her skin glowed brighter than Jiho remembered. But her smile was the same. And in her arms, growing so much bigger now, was Hannah. Jiho walked forward to meet them. He felt nervous for some reason. Lyra had become an empress now, ruler of 100 worlds. He was still just a farmer. But when Lyra saw him, she didn't wait for ceremony. She walked straight to him and embraced him with 2 arms while holding Hannah with the other 2. "Jiho," she said warmly. "I've missed you." "I missed you too," Jiho said. Surprised by how true it was, she held out Hannah. "Look how much she's grown." The baby was much bigger now. Almost the size of a human 1-year-old, even though only 6 months had passed. Her skin glowed bright and healthy. When she saw Jiho, she made excited sounds and reached for him. Jiho took her carefully. Hannah patted his face with her tiny hands and made a sound that might have been a laugh. "She's beautiful," he said softly. "She asked about you," Lyra said. "In her own way. She knows your face from the recordings I've shown her. She knows you saved her life." The ceremony that followed was simple. A Vellani dignitary read a formal statement about the friendship between Earth and the Vellani Empire. Minji spoke about cultural exchange and mutual respect. Admiral Kale talked about honor and courage. Then Lyra spoke. 6 months ago, I crashed on this world, dying and afraid. One human saw me not as an alien or a princess, but as someone who needed help. He asked for nothing. He expected nothing. He simply helped because it was right. She walked to a covered stone near the edge of Jiho's field. We Vellani believe in honoring those who change the course of history. We build monuments to warriors who win battles, to scientists who make discoveries, to leaders who guide nations. She pulled away the cover. Beneath was a simple stone marker, about waist high. Carved on it in both Korean and Vellani script were words. Here, kindness changed the galaxy. Here, a farmer showed us what truly matters. Jiho stared at it. It wasn't fancy. No gold or jewels. Just simple stone with simple words. Somehow, that made it perfect. I told you I would not force rewards on you, Lyra said. This is not a reward. It is a reminder. For my people and yours. That compassion is stronger than weapons. That one good act can echo across the stars. Jiho touched the stone. His throat felt tight. Thank you, he managed to say. But Lyra wasn't finished. There is more. The Vellani Empire and Earth are now in formal alliance. But more than that, we are establishing cultural exchange. Young Vellani will come here to learn about Earth, to learn about farming, about art, about all the things you humans do that we have forgotten. She gestured to Tarn and Nabi. These two are the first. Others will follow. They will learn from you, Jiho. They will learn that advancement isn't just about technology. It's about remembering how to be kind, how to help without asking what you gain, how to see someone in need and simply help. Admiral Kale stepped forward. The Empire has also established a protection treaty for this world. Earth is now under Vellani protection. Any who threaten your world will face the Imperial fleet. Minji looked shocked. Admiral, that's extraordinary. It is deserved, Kale said simply. One of your people saved our future. We will help protect yours. The ceremony ended. Officials talked and made plans. But Jiho slipped away to his fields with Lyra walking beside him, still holding Hana. You've changed things, Lyra said quietly. The whole Empire is talking about Earth now. About humans. About your capacity for kindness. There are movements in our culture. People saying we've become too cold, too focused on power and technology. They want to remember compassion. They call themselves Jiho's children. Jiho stopped walking. What? I'm nobody special. You keep saying that, Lyra said, smiling. But you're wrong. You are special because you think you're not. Most beings who do great things want recognition, want reward. You just wanted to help someone in need. That simplicity, that purity of purpose, it's special. It's what the galaxy needs to remember. Hana made a sound and reached toward a butterfly passing by. Lyra laughed. She loves Earth. She studies everything with such curiosity. When she is older, I will bring her back here. I will show her this field where she was born. I will tell her the full story of how a farmer gave her life. Tell her to be kind, Jiho said. That's all. Just be kind to others. I will, Lyra promised. I will teach her that power means nothing without compassion. That ruling is about serving others, not being served. These are lessons I'm learning from watching you. They walked back to where everyone was gathered. Lyra had to leave soon. Political matters called her back to the imperial capital. But she promised to visit again. Before she boarded her ship, she embraced Jiho one more time. Thank you, she said, for everything. For Hana's life. for showing us what we had forgotten, for being exactly who you are. Take care of her, Jiho said, looking at Hannah one last time. The baby waved her little arms at him. I will, Lyra said. And when she's grown, I'll tell her about the farmer who saved the galaxy by simply being kind. The ships lifted off, rising into the sky until they were just points of light, then nothing. Jiho stood in his field, watching them go. Tarn and Nadi came to stand beside him. Will you teach us more about rice planting tomorrow? Tarn asked. Of course, Jiho said. That evening, Jiho sat on his porch as the sun set. His fields were green and healthy. His barn was rebuilt. He wasn't alone anymore. Somehow, without trying, without wanting it, his life had become full again. He thought about Hannah, his wife. He wished he could see all this. He wished he could know that their dream of bringing life into the world had come true, just in the strangest way possible. The stars came out, brighter than ever. Jiho knew now that some of those lights were worlds. Worlds where people were learning about Earth, where they were talking about kindness and compassion, where parents might tell their children about a farmer who changed everything. It was overwhelming, but also beautiful. The next morning, Jiho woke early as always. He made tea and walked out to his fields. Tarn was already there, practicing what Jiho had taught him. You're up early, Jiho called out. I wanted to practice, Tarn said. I want to be good at this. Good enough to teach others when they come. Others are coming? 5 more students next month, Tarn said excitedly. They want to learn farming. They want to learn about Earth. They say they want to learn the way of Jiho. Jiho shook his head, embarrassed. I don't have a way. I'm just a farmer. That's what makes it special, Tarn said, echoing Lyra's words. You're just a farmer, but you changed the galaxy. They worked together as the sun rose higher. The rice stalks swayed in the breeze. Birds sang in the trees. Ships would come and go from the stars now. Earth was part of something bigger. But here, in this field, things were simple. Plant the seeds. Water them. Wait for them to grow. Help them when they need it. Harvest when the time is right. Simple lessons. But important ones. Jiho smiled as he worked. His quiet life was gone forever. But he had found something better. Purpose. Connection. A chance to teach others about things that mattered.